Elias Kane sat alone in the command chair of his human starship, the Odyssey, staring at the vast emptiness of the outer sector. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, their cold light glimmering on the metal hull of his ship. He had been traveling for weeks, on what was supposed to be a routine mission of diplomacy and exploration. Yet, the moment the Council had summoned him, he had sensed the gravity of the situation. This was no ordinary diplomatic call. Humanity had never been asked to intervene directly in the affairs of the Zytherian Empire, and yet a distress signal had arrived, urgent, clear, and filled with a sense of desperation that he could feel even through the encrypted transmission. The message was simple, almost startling in its clarity. The Zytherian Queen Lyra was childless. Her empire, proud and technologically advanced, faced the threat of extinction. Without an heir, their people might vanish within a single generation. Humanity had always observed the Zytherians from a distance, respecting their isolation. The Empire's borders were legendary, as were the stories of their brilliance and longevity. But now, their need was direct, personal, and unshakable. Elias felt a weight on his shoulders he had never carried before. He thought of his own homeworld, its blue oceans and green continents. He thought of humanity's strengths, the curiosity that had driven them to explore space, the courage that had carried them into conflicts far larger than themselves, and the empathy that bound communities together. Perhaps these traits, so often celebrated on Earth, were the very things the Cytherians now needed. Perhaps humanity could help a species survive in a way no one had expected. The journey to the Zytherian flagship was long and silent. Elias spent hours in the observation deck, watching as the stars streaked past in elongated lines, a reminder of how small they all were in the grand scheme of the galaxy. The Odyssey was equipped with the latest human technology, yet he felt a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. He had read countless files about the Zytherian people, their social structures, their rituals, their biology. They were unlike anything humans had encountered. Their bodies were taller, their skin had a faint iridescence, and their minds operated at speeds that challenged human comprehension. Elias knew that even small mistakes could cause diplomatic disasters. But beyond protocol, there was something far more profound at stake: the survival of a civilization. Finally, the Zytherian flagship came into view. Unlike human ships, it did not have a rigid hull or conventional design. It flowed like liquid metal, shifting and reflecting the starlight in ways that made it seem alive. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed across its surface, shifting like waves of color, and Elias could feel the faint vibration of energy even from a distance. This was a ship built not only for function but for majesty, a floating palace that reflected the genius of an entire species. His heart pounded with awe and apprehension. He had faced dangerous situations before, but this was different. This was diplomacy that might shape the fate of a civilization. Upon docking, Elias was escorted through corridors that seemed organic, as if the walls themselves were breathing. The air shimmered with soft lights, and the sound of faint harmonic vibrations filled the space. It was peaceful, yet alien, and every step he took reminded him of how far he was from home. Finally, he was brought to a large chamber at the heart of the ship. There, standing with regal presence, was Queen Lyra. She was tall, taller than any human he had seen, and her skin glimmered faintly with soft colors that shifted as she moved. Her eyes were deep and expressive, reflecting not only intelligence, but a centuries-long burden that weighed heavily upon her. She did not speak immediately, but Elias could sense the unspoken plea in her gaze. For all the years humans had studied alien life, nothing had prepared him for the profound vulnerability in the eyes of a ruler who carried the fate of her entire people. Elias bowed slightly, though he was not required to. Lyra inclined her head in acknowledgement, a gesture that seemed to mix curiosity, expectation, and weariness. For a moment, silence filled the room. A silence that was not empty, but thick with possibility. Then, in a voice that was soft, yet carried authority, she spoke.
"Human," she said, her tone neither formal nor cold, but measured and thoughtful. "You come because the Council has chosen your people to aid mine."
I have lived for centuries, yet I have failed in the most fundamental duty of my life. I have no heir. My people, once vast and flourishing, may soon vanish. Elias nodded, trying to find words that were both respectful and honest. Your Majesty, humanity has always believed that survival and growth require collaboration, understanding, and courage. We are willing to assist you, but I must understand how. What do you need from me? Lyra's gaze softened, a shadow of hope appearing for the first time in what seemed like ages. It is not merely assistance of the mind or the hand. It is something that requires connection. My people require emotional and intellectual resonance to awaken the cycle of life. A guardian catalyst is needed, someone who can bond with me to awaken what has lain dormant for centuries. The word struck Elias with both awe and confusion. The concept was alien in the truest sense. Humans understood biology, but this was something more profound, something that required both courage and understanding. He swallowed and nodded. If this is what your people need, then I will try. I will do everything within my power to help you. For the next several days, Elias remained aboard the flagship, learning about Zytherian culture and the nuances of their reproductive rituals. He spent hours with Lyra, walking through corridors that glimmered with light and sound, discussing the history of her people, their values, and their fears. He observed the intricate art and technology that surrounded him. Yet he also began to see the loneliness that clung to the Queen like a shadow. She had ruled for centuries, yet she carried a private grief that no one could share. Her people were brilliant, but without an heir, brilliance would fade into silence. Slowly, Elias and Lyra developed a mutual respect that transcended species. He admired her wisdom, her patience, and the quiet strength that allowed her to lead for so long despite personal sorrow. She, in turn, appreciated his calm judgment, his patience, and the courage it took for him to step into a role that no human had ever attempted. The bond was not immediate, but it was real, built on trust, understanding, and the shared goal of giving her people a future. One evening, as the stars shimmered outside the panoramic windows of the flagship, Lyra spoke quietly.
"I have seen many humans through history," she said, "but you, Elias Kane, are different. You do not rush to judgment."
You do not seek glory. You see purpose in what others fear. Perhaps this is why the Council chose you. Elias felt the weight of her words. I do not seek recognition, Your Majesty. I seek only to do what is right. If humanity can help save your people, then that is reward enough. The days turned into weeks, and the preparations for the ritual began. Elias learned how Zytherian life forces interacted with external energy, how emotional resonance could trigger biological processes, and how connection could produce results that logical alone could not explain. He practiced meditative exercises, focusing on empathy, patience, and understanding, knowing that failure could not only harm Lyra, but also endanger her empire. He realized that humanity's traits, the very qualities that made them fragile yet resilient, could be the key to unlocking life in a civilization. Unlike any other, finally, the day of the ritual arrived. The chamber at the core of the flagship was alive with subtle energy, the walls shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that mirrored the Zytherian life force. Elias and Lyra stood facing each other, a silence stretching between them that was both tense and profound. The moment felt sacred, a convergence of human courage and alien tradition. It was the beginning of something far greater than either could imagine, a bridge between species that could change the future of both. As the ritual commenced, Elias felt the hum of energy around them, felt the resonance of two species aligning, and understood in that moment the depth of responsibility he carried. The future of the Zytherian Empire rested not only in their science or strength, but in the human capacity to connect, to empathize, and to act with courage. And in that realization he found both fear and hope, the fear of failure, and the hope of a miracle yet to come. The days following the initial meeting between Elias Kane and Queen Lyra passed in a quiet intensity. The human captain found himself moving through the luminous corridors of the Zetherian flagship with growing familiarity. Each hall and chamber seemed alive, the walls shifting slightly, pulsating with a rhythm that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the entire ship. Elias had learned to sense the subtle energy that flowed through the vessel, a quiet but powerful resonance that spoke of the intelligence and care invested by the Zetherians in every inch of their technology. It was both awe-inspiring and disorienting, a constant reminder that he had crossed far beyond the boundaries of human experience. Lyra spent these days with him, guiding him through the customs, traditions, and science of her people. Their conversations were long and deliberate, covering everything from the history of the Zetherian Empire to the intricate details of their reproductive processes. Elias listened intently, absorbing information that stretched the limits of his understanding. Zetherian biology was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Their reproductive systems were influenced not only by genetics, but by emotional and intellectual connection, a link that could take weeks, months, or even years to establish. Elias realized that what they were attempting was far more than a biological act. It was a fusion of understanding, trust, and resonance between two very different species. In the quiet moments, he observed Lyra in ways he had not anticipated. She was regal, yes, and commanding, but also deeply vulnerable. There were moments when her eyes reflected centuries of hope and sorrow, the weight of an entire species resting upon her shoulders. Elias understood that this mission required more than courage. It demanded empathy. He had trained for crises, for battle, for diplomacy, but nothing had prepared him for the emotional responsibility of being chosen to help ensure the survival of an entire civilization. And yet, he did not falter. He felt a resolve growing inside him, a determination to meet the challenge not only with intellect, but with humanity itself. Their routines became carefully structured. In the mornings, Elias practiced meditative exercises designed to attune him to Zetherian energy. Lyra instructed him on controlling focus, calming thoughts, and opening his mind to resonance beyond the human senses. At first, it had been frustrating. Human minds were not naturally equipped to perceive the subtle rhythms of Zetherian life. But over time, he began to feel the faint pulse, the gentle hum that vibrated through the corridors, through the air, and even through Lyra herself. It was not something he could explain scientifically. It was something to feel, to sense, and to respect. By midday, they would walk through the observation decks, overlooking the endless expanse of space. Elias often found himself staring at the stars, trying to imagine the Zetherian worlds he had read about. Lyra spoke of her home planet, Zithera Prime, a world of deep violet forests and rivers that shimmered like liquid crystal. She described cities that floated above the land, held aloft by energy fields, and the great archives where Zetherian knowledge was preserved over millennia. Elias listened, absorbing every detail, knowing that these descriptions were not merely stories. They were a reminder of what was at stake. The future of this world and its people rested on the fragile bridge they were building together. Evenings were reserved for quiet discussions. They would sit in the luminous chamber at the heart of the flagship, the walls glowing softly in response to Lyra's presence. Here, the conversation shifted from history and science to personal reflections. Lyra spoke of the loneliness that accompanied immortality, of the endless weight of responsibility, and the fear of leaving her people without an heir. Elias shared stories of humanity, its struggles, triumphs, and enduring hope. Slowly, they began to understand each other in ways words alone could not capture. Trust grew between them, subtle and unspoken, forming the foundation of the bond they would soon need to strengthen through the ritual. One morning, Lyra led Elias to a private chamber, one reserved for moments of great significance. The room was circular, lined with crystalline structures that reflected and amplified energy. Soft, ambient light filled the space, changing in color and intensity in harmony with the Zetherian life forces present. "This is where the ritual must begin," she explained. "It is a sacred process, and it requires not only physical presence, but complete alignment of intent. You must remain calm, focused, and open to the resonance of life itself." Elias nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He had studied the theoretical aspects of the ritual, but nothing could prepare him for the immediacy of its reality. Lyra instructed him to close his eyes and focus on the energy that flowed through the chamber, through her, and ultimately through himself. At first, he felt nothing but confusion, a faint pressure in his mind that resisted understanding. But as he concentrated, he began to sense the vibrations, subtle at first, like the faint hum of distant machinery. The resonance grew stronger as he focused, until he felt a pulse that seemed to connect him to Lyra in a profound and intimate way. Days turned into weeks as they practiced this alignment. Elias learned to sense the shifts in Lyra's energy, to match his own rhythm to hers, and to respond to the subtle cues that indicated when harmony had been achieved. Each session left him exhausted yet exhilarated, as if he had touched a force beyond comprehension. Lyra, too, experienced changes. Her skin seemed to glow faintly with renewed vitality, her movements more fluid, her presence stronger. It was clear that the connection was deepening, and with each day, the possibility of life, of a new generation, grew more tangible. Despite the intensity of their work, moments of levity and human interaction remained essential. Elias introduced Lyra to simple human pleasures, stories of Earth, music, and the small comforts of daily life. She listened with curiosity, sometimes laughing softly at the oddities of human culture. These moments were not frivolous, they were vital. They reminded both of them that connection was not merely a technical requirement, but an emotional one. The human capacity for empathy, for imagination, and for hope proved to be as important as any scientific knowledge. One evening, as they walked along the observation deck, Lyra paused to gaze at the stars. "Do you understand, Elias?" she asked quietly. "Why the Council chose you? It is not only your strength or your intelligence. It is your humanity. You can connect in ways no machine, no Zytherian, no artificial device could ever achieve." "I do not feel extraordinary," he said. "I am simply willing to act when others hesitate. Perhaps that is all that matters." Lyra smiled, a rare and genuine expression. Willingness is everything. Without it, knowledge is meaningless. Without it, even life itself cannot flourish.
The weeks of preparation culminated in a day that neither of them would forget. The chamber at the core of the flagship had been re-eddied for the ritual, every crystal and energy field tuned to respond to the resonance they had cultivated together.
Elias and Lyra stood facing each other, the air thick with anticipation. The hum of the ship seemed to rise in intensity, echoing the rhythm of their combined life forces. Every breath, every movement, every thought mattered. This was more than science. It was an act of hope, of courage, and of trust. As the ritual commenced, Elias felt the energy envelop him, a living, breathing force that pulsed through every nerve. Lyra's presence was equally powerful, her energy radiating warmth and intensity. They moved together, not in a physical sense, but in alignment of intent, thought, and emotion. Hours seemed to pass in moments, time stretching and bending as they focused on the singular goal of awakening life. Elias felt exhaustion, exhilaration, and a strange sense of transcendence. He was no longer just human. He was part of something greater, something fragile and magnificent. By the end of the first day of ritual practice, subtle signs of progress were visible. Lyra's energy glowed with renewed vitality, and the patterns in the chamber shifted in ways that indicated a response. It was a small success, but it was real. Elias understood that this was only the beginning. The journey to awaken life within the Queen was long and uncertain. But for the first time in centuries, hope had a tangible form. They were no longer two beings from different worlds. They were collaborators in a process that could change the fate of a civilization. As night fell over the flagship, Elias sat quietly, reflecting on the weeks that had passed. He thought of the Zytherian Empire, its people, and the incredible responsibility that had been entrusted to him. He felt the weight of centuries pressing down, yet alongside it was a quiet excitement, Humanity, with all its flaws and strengths, had the capacity to inspire and create life beyond its own species. It was a lesson in courage, empathy, and the enduring power of connection. Lyra approached silently, standing beside him as they looked out at the stars. "You have done well," she said softly, "not because of your strength, but because of your willingness to understand, to connect, and to hope. Humanity may yet teach us more than we imagined."
Elias nodded, feeling a profound sense of purpose. "We are learning together," he replied.
"Not just about your people, but about the possibilities that exist when we trust each other." The first part of their shared journey was complete, but the path ahead was only beginning. Weeks of ritual, trust, and alignment awaited, each step bringing them closer to a miracle that could save an entire civilization. And as Elias gazed at the endless stars, he realized that this mission was no longer about duty alone. It was about life, hope, and the unbreakable power of human spirit. The chamber at the heart of the Zytherian flagship pulsed with quiet energy, a rhythm that seemed alive flowing between Elias Kane and Queen Lyra. The weeks of preparation, of meditative focus, and emotional alignment had brought them to this point. Elias had learned to feel the subtle vibrations of Zytherian life, to sense the faint currents that intertwined with the Queen's own essence. Lyra had responded with grace and courage, her presence steady yet glowing with anticipation. They had built a connection that transcended words, a shared resonance that was fragile and extraordinary, and today they would take the next step. The morning began with the usual meditation, the soft hum of the chamber guiding them into a state of awareness. Elias closed his eyes, focusing on the energy around him, feeling it flow through the floor, the walls, and most importantly, through Lyra. He sensed the warmth of her life force, the subtle patterns of her emotions, and the depth of her centuries-long experience. It was overwhelming at first, but he had grown accustomed to the intensity, and now it felt like an extension of himself, a bridge connecting two worlds. Lyra's voice broke the silence, calm and precise. "Today, Elias, we move beyond preparation. We will attempt the initiation of life. Remember, it is not strength, not skill alone that matters. It is balance, focus, and trust. You must remain present in every moment." Elias nodded, feeling a nervous energy rise within him. This was no ordinary task. It was not a battle or a negotiation. It was the creation of life, something both sacred and delicate. He took a deep breath and allowed his mind to clear, focusing only on the connection between himself and the Queen, on the delicate balance of energy that flowed between them. The chamber responded. Immediately, the crystalline structures along the walls began to glow brighter, their light reflecting in gentle waves across the floor. The air seemed charged with a tangible presence, as if life itself had been waiting for this moment. Elias could feel the pulse of energy strengthening, a subtle rhythm matching the beat of his own heart. Lyra's eyes met his, and in that glance he understood the gravity of the act. This was not merely a ritual. It was hope made tangible. As they began the ritual, Elias focused on the principles Lyra had taught him: resonance, alignment, and empathy. His mind reached outward, connecting not only to her energy, but to the ambient life force that flowed through the ship. At first, the sensation was overwhelming. Waves of warmth, light, and subtle vibrations swept over him, testing his concentration. But he steadied himself, breathing slowly, grounding his thoughts, and allowing the flow to guide him. Lyra's presence was a steady anchor in the storm of sensation. He could feel the subtle changes in her energy as she responded, each shift a signal that they were moving closer to success. Hours passed with a quiet intensity. Neither spoke much, for words would have broken the delicate balance. Their connection deepened, moving beyond human or Zytherian understanding, into a space where thought, emotion, and life force intertwined. Elias could feel the first signs of biological response, a faint glow emanating from Lyra that pulsed with the rhythm of possibility. He understood that this was the beginning, the first step toward the creation of new life. A surge of awe and responsibility filled him. Humanity's influence, fragile yet resilient, had become part of something far greater than itself. By midday, subtle changes became visible. Lyra's glow strengthened, the bioluminescent patterns along her skin shifting in response to their alignment. Elias marveled at the sight, feeling a deep sense of connection and purpose. This was life responding to their bond, proof that their efforts were not in vain. Yet, it was only the beginning. The process required patience, focus, and continued trust. They could not rush it, for even the smallest disruption could have consequences. During moments of pause, Elias would speak quietly to Lyra, offering reassurance and grounding her energy. "You are doing perfectly," he said. "Every moment brings us closer. Trust yourself, and trust the process." Lyra's eyes softened, and a small, genuine smile appeared. "It's not easy," she admitted, "but your presence steadies me. I have carried the weight of centuries, yet with you, I feel good. Hope. Real hope, not just duty or obligation." The chamber seemed to hum in agreement, the walls glowing more vividly, reflecting the harmony of their combined energies. Elias understood that this was more than ritual. It was a collaboration of species, an unprecedented bond that bridged human courage and Zytherian wisdom. He felt an immense pride, not in himself, but in the capacity of humanity to connect, to inspire, and to create life beyond its own species. As the hours continued, Elias noticed changes in Lyra's demeanor. Her movements became lighter, more fluid. Her voice, once tinged with centuries of caution, carried warmth and subtle anticipation. There was a spark in her eyes that had been absent before, a glimmer of something new and profound. Elias understood that the process was succeeding. They were on the verge of something extraordinary, something that neither human nor Zytherian had anticipated. The birth of hope itself. The first tangible sign came unexpectedly. A faint warmth spread through the chamber, followed by a subtle pulse that seemed to ripple outward from Lyra's body. Elias sensed the energy shift, a resonance that indicated the initial formation of life within her. He felt awe, fear, and exhilaration all at once. This was no longer theory or preparation. It was real. They had succeeded in initiating the process, and the possibility of a child, a new generation, had become tangible. News of the progress spread quietly among the crew and attendants. Though they had been instructed to maintain discretion, the subtle energy shifts and changes in Lyra were impossible to hide. Whispers of hope and cautious celebration filled the corridors of the ship. Humanity's contribution, embodied in Elias's presence, had become a symbol of possibility and renewal. Even the most skeptical of the Zytherians felt the weight of this moment. A bridge between despair and hope. Despite the success, Elias and Lyra knew that much work remained. The process of nurturing life required constant attention, alignment, and patience. There were days when the energy fluctuated, when fatigue threatened focus, and when doubt crept quietly into their minds. Yet they persevered, understanding that this was a responsibility that could not be abandoned. Humanity's resilience and courage, combined with Zytherian wisdom, were now intertwined in ways that transcended the boundaries of either species. During quiet moments, Elias reflected on the journey. He thought of humanity's strengths, curiosity, empathy, courage, and perseverance. These traits, often celebrated yet fragile, had become crucial in this alien context. They were not merely helping to create life. They were demonstrating that the human spirit, when guided by compassion and determination, could influence the fate of civilizations. It was a revelation that filled him with pride and humility in equal measure. Lyra, too, began to show signs of emotional transformation. The centuries of isolation and pressure that had weighed on her began to lift, replaced by a cautious optimism. She spoke more openly, sharing stories of her childhood, of the growth of her empire, and of the hopes she had once held for her people. Elias listened with empathy, offering encouragement and understanding. Their bond, forged in purpose and trust, had deepened into something profound. It was a connection that would shape not only the immediate future, but the legacy of both humanity and the Zetharians. Weeks passed, each day marked by careful monitoring, meditation, and alignment. The energy within the chamber grew stronger, more stable, and more vibrant. Elias could sense the child growing within Lyra, a presence both delicate and powerful, a living testament to the unity of two species. He marveled at the miracle of it, at the way human courage and Zetharian biology had combined to create life. It was more than a scientific achievement. It was proof that hope, trust, and perseverance could transcend even the greatest of differences. One evening, as the stars shimmered outside the panoramic windows, Lyra turned to Elias with a quiet intensity. "Do you feel it?" she asked. "The presence? It is alive. It responds to our thoughts, our alignment. It is as if the child knows us, understands us, even now." Elias nodded, feeling a profound resonance in his chest. "I feel it," he said.
It is real. We have succeeded, but this is only the beginning.
We must continue to nurture, to align, and to guide it. The child depends on us, on humanity and Zetheria working together. Lyra smiled softly, a rare expression of pure hope. "I had feared I would never know this joy. I had feared my people would vanish and that my life would be empty. But now, there is life, and there is hope. We are not alone. Humanity has shown us that even across the stars, connection is possible, and it can change everything." The chamber seemed to hum in quiet agreement, the bioluminescent patterns reflecting the growing vitality within Lyra. Elias felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Humanity, fragile yet courageous, had become part of something extraordinary. He had helped awaken life in a civilization unlike his own, and in doing so, he had discovered the power of trust, empathy, and resilience. As the night deepened, Elias and Lyra continued their meditation, their energies intertwined, guiding the growing life within her. It was a process that would continue for months, requiring patience, focus, and constant care. Yet, for the first time in centuries, hope had a tangible form. The child represented not only the survival of the Zetharian Empire, but also the enduring potential of humanity to inspire, to create, and to nurture life beyond its own world. Elias watched the stars, reflecting on the journey so far. He had traveled across light years to answer a call for help, to act with courage and empathy, and to embrace a responsibility that few could understand. And now, as life grew within the Queen, he realized that the mission had become something far greater than duty. It had become a testament to the power of connection, to the courage of humans, and to the hope that even the most isolated civilizations could find renewal through trust and collaboration. Lyra reached out, her hand brushing lightly against his. "Thank you, Elias," she said. "Not just for your presence, but for your understanding. You have helped us more than words can express." He nodded, feeling the weight and beauty of the moment. "We are partners," he replied, "in hope, in life, and in the future. Together, we will see this through." And so, the process continued, a delicate dance of energy, focus, and trust. Elias and Lyra, human and Zetharian, stood at the threshold of creation, their bond a bridge between species, and their courage a beacon of hope. The child within Lyra grew, a living symbol of collaboration, trust, and the enduring power of humanity to inspire life, even across the vast expanse of space. For the first time in centuries, the Zetharian Empire could dream of a future. And for Elias, humanity had proven that courage, empathy, and resilience could shape not only their own destiny, but that of others, even among the stars. The months that followed were a time of quiet vigilance and profound anticipation. The child within Queen Lyra had begun to grow, and with each passing day, its presence became more palpable. Elias Kane remained by her side, observing, learning, and guiding. Their bond, strengthened through weeks of meditation, alignment, and trust, now extended to the life that grew within her. The child was not only a symbol of hope, but a tangible representation of the collaboration between humanity and Zytheria, a connection that neither species had fully understood until now. The chamber at the heart of the flagship had become a place of daily ritual, a space where energy, focus, and care converged. Elias and Lyra spent hours in meditation, their minds aligned, their life forces resonating in harmony. The Zytherian crystals glimmered with every heartbeat, reflecting the vitality within her. The ship itself seemed to respond, the hum of its engines synchronized to the pulse of life. Even the human crew, who had been trained to operate in high-stress conditions, could feel the weight of the moment, the quiet excitement that something extraordinary was happening. Lyra's demeanor had changed. Where once there had been centuries of isolation and worry, now there was a calm strength, tempered with cautious hope. She moved with a lightness that surprised even herself, and her gaze often lingered on Elias with a warmth that went beyond gratitude. For Elias, the transformation was equally profound. He had come to the Zytherian Empire as a representative of humanity, tasked with a mission that defied logic and expectation. Yet, over time, he had discovered that the qualities that made humans fragile, curiosity, empathy, courage, were exactly what allowed them to influence life beyond their own species. This mission had become not only about survival, but about understanding, connection, and hope. The first signs of the child's active response appeared one evening. As Elias and Lyra meditated together, a subtle pulse spread through the chamber, a gentle vibration that resonated with both of them. Elias felt it as a warmth in his chest, a gentle pressure that was both thrilling and humbling. Lyra's body glowed faintly, and her breathing deepened, a rhythmic echo of the life forming inside her. It was not a dramatic or sudden change, but it was undeniable. The child was responding, aware in some fundamental way, and Elias understood the significance. They were witnessing the miracle of life, the culmination of patience, trust, and collaboration. The Zytherian attendants and scientists monitored the process with cautious optimism. Though they had witnessed many forms of life emerge over the centuries, none had involved the collaboration of a human in this way. Data collected from the chamber confirmed what Elias and Lyra had felt instinctively. The child was thriving, and the energetic alignment between mother and human catalyst was unprecedented. The room became a space of celebration, quiet but profound, as the attendants realized that the survival of their species might now be assured. Despite the excitement, Elias and Lyra maintained focus. They knew that creation, especially one so delicate and unique, required constant care. Every thought, every emotion, every action could influence the outcome. Elias took care to remain centered, mindful of his own energy and its effect on the Queen. He learned to sense the smallest fluctuations in her life force, to adjust his focus, and to respond in ways that promoted harmony. The process was as much about empathy and understanding as it was about alignment and energy. Humanity's capacity for patience and compassion had become a crucial factor in the survival of an entire species. Lyra often spoke of the transformation she felt. "I had thought my life would be empty, even in the presence of my people," she said one evening, her voice soft but steady. "I had feared that I would never know joy beyond duty, but now I feel life in a way I have never known." The child is more than an heir. It is a promise, a renewal of hope for all of Zytheria. Elias listened, feeling the depth of her words. "Your courage and openness have made this possible," he said. "The child is not just life. It is the strength of two worlds working together." Time passed, and the child's growth continued at a remarkable pace. Zytherian scientists marveled at the hybrid nature of the life force, a blend of human and Zytherian traits that seemed to amplify resilience. The child's presence strengthened Lyra, stabilizing her energy and enhancing her natural abilities. For Elias, witnessing this was awe-inspiring. Humanity had become part of the creation of a being that would shape the future of an alien civilization. It was a responsibility unlike any other he had faced, and he approached it with humility, understanding the power of connection and collaboration. The day of birth approached with quiet anticipation. The chamber was prepared, its energy fields calibrated to respond to the final stages of life creation. Elias remained by Lyra's side, offering guidance, support, and calm presence. The Queen's body responded instinctively, movements precise and graceful, her focus absolute. Elias felt the energy around them intensify, the room vibrating with the force of life itself. Every heartbeat, every breath was a step closer to the culmination of months of dedication. When the moment arrived, it was both dramatic and serene. A surge of energy spread through Lyra, resonating with Elias's presence, and the child emerged. The life form was unlike any seen before, a perfect blend of human and Zetherian traits. Its skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the energy that had shaped it, and its eyes opened, curious and aware in ways that defied expectation. For a brief moment, silence filled the chamber, as if all of space had paused to witness the miracle. Lyra held the child close, her touch gentle yet firm, a mixture of maternal instinct and royal command. Elias stood beside her, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment and awe. Humanity's influence had become tangible, a life that would grow and thrive, representing the collaboration and trust between two civilizations. The attendants and crew watched in reverent silence, understanding that they were witnessing history. In the weeks following the birth, the child thrived under the care of both Lyra and the human team. Elias remained a constant presence, guiding the child's development, supporting the Queen, and ensuring that the delicate balance of energy and care continued. The child's growth was remarkable, demonstrating intelligence, curiosity, and empathy far beyond what was expected. It was clear that the fusion of human and Zetherian traits had produced something extraordinary, a being capable of shaping the future of both species. The birth had a profound effect on the Zetherian Empire. Factions that had been divided by fear and uncertainty now united around the symbol of new life. The child became a beacon of hope, a tangible representation of renewal and possibility. Lyra's leadership, strengthened by the success of the birth, inspired her people. Humanity's contribution, embodied in Elias's presence, became a source of respect and admiration. The collaboration between the two species had not only ensured survival, but had created a bond that would last for generations. Elias reflected on the journey, understanding the magnitude of what had been achieved. He had traveled across light years to answer a call for help, to act with courage, empathy, and understanding. In doing so, he had become part of a miracle, a testament to the power of connection and trust. Humanity had shown that its strengths, curiosity, resilience, and compassion could influence life beyond its own world, shaping the destiny of an entire civilization. Lyra, holding her child, turned to Elias with a mixture of gratitude and admiration. "You have given us more than life," she said softly. "You have given us hope, understanding, and the proof that even across the stars connection is possible. You have shown that the courage and empathy of one human can change everything." Elias smiled, feeling the depth of the moment. "We have done this together," he replied. "Humanity and Zetheria working as partners. This is only the beginning. The child is a promise, and together we will guide the future." The child, sensing the energy of both human and Zetherian presence, reached out instinctively, a small hand brushing against Elias. A warmth spread through him, a connection that transcended species, and he understood fully that life, hope, and trust were intertwined. Humanity had become part of Zetherian history, a legacy that would endure for generations. Months turned into years, and the child grew under the watchful care of Lyra and Elias. The hybrid being thrived, demonstrating intelligence, resilience, and empathy beyond expectation. It became a living symbol of collaboration, trust, and the enduring power of humanity to inspire life across the galaxy. The Zetherian Empire, revitalized by the child's birth, flourished once more, its people united in hope and admiration for the human who had helped create a new future. Elias knew that his mission had changed him forever. Humanity's capacity for courage, empathy, and perseverance had been tested in ways he could never have imagined. He had seen firsthand that life, even in the most alien of forms, could be nurtured through understanding and connection. And as he looked at Lyra, her people, and the child who represented the future of their civilization, he felt a profound sense of purpose and fulfillment. The stars outside the flagship shone brightly, reflecting the promise of life, hope, and collaboration. Humanity had reached beyond its own world, not through conquest, but through empathy, courage, and the willingness to trust. The child's existence was proof that even across vast distances and differences, connection could create miracles. And for Elias Kane, for Queen Lyra, and for the Zytharian Empire, the future had begun anew, filled with the promise of life, the strength of partnership, and the enduring power of hope